what phases this is going to be done in. But I'm just kind of throwing in conceptual ideas I was working up. Kind of two different ideas as far as the parking. Kind of have angled parking here because of the minimal space in the parking area. Mentioned the parking in there. Maybe an added buffer of plants and landscaping here. Maybe to add some more shade to the parking, or just more aesthetically improvements. There's I think a dead apple tree here with bittersweet growing through it. Also a diseased tree here. Both should be removed probably. I think some general limbing up of these trees. Probably thinning out a lot of the woods here. Provide better, cleaner access for the accessing to the rowing club. We use that. The pathways over there.
Where is the rowing club?
I'm not sure exactly.
The rowing club,
There's an existing shed right here.
Shed here, and that's their.
It's off the map, I believe.
Off of there, off into the lake.
Yep.
the rowing club is over
Yeah.
It's beyond the map up
beyond,
here.
beyond that map. It's on the other side of the coast.
This kind of locust map here, probably it's probably over in this area.
Can I ask just a,
Peter,
just a simple
Yeah, beyond up there.
technical question? Is two-way parking
Exactly.
or one-way parking kind of the, which one is the standard, which is the industry
Existing footbridges.
norm? What do you?
I think it really depends per situation. This, I think, introducing one-way flow through the parking, because you don't want angled parking with two-way flow, because you can't park in that
Right,
tough
right.
angle.
So one-way parking is a more appropriate?
It's
You can allow more spots for the.
It's usually a function of how much space you have to deal with.
Yeah.
That's the problem we have out here on Mechanic Street. You need a certain width to have two-way traffic,
So
right?
we'd be better off to just angle,
You'd get-
to just target one-way parking.
You get more spaces out of the
Yep.
Okay.
surface. Yep.
Thank you.
And I think it would require some minimal signage, maybe entrance signs, exit signs, just to keep the flow, but that's pretty minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
At least hope people don't drive the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, people will, but
yes, they will.
can't stop that.
Okay. Now, is this a barrier?
So I was thinking, I noticed a lot, I haven't been to the site very recently, but I think this is kind of the access, seems in the winter for trucks, snowmobiles, ice fishermen.
Which has become an issue.
To my eye, it seemed like it would. It's, more erosion issue, if anything. I mean, I'm
Right.
all for those activities. I'm not sure that's the one place they can access, but if it was, I wouldn't want to hinder it. But to kind of avoid that, pretty easy boulder retaining wall, any steps running through it, would kind of neaten the area up, and we'll kind of avoid that as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the issues, and Beth knows, is that during the spring, in getting ice sheds and everything off here,
They
that
use that.
area last year was really torn up.
Yeah, they rip up.
Oh, yeah.
They scrape up
I'm
the
sure,
whole
yeah.
thing. So the idea was to have some type of a barrier here to
Mm-hmm.
prevent the access and egress, because you basically have the state launch area.
Yeah, right next
Right up
door.
the road.
Yeah.
You just do that with big boulders.
Yeah, I mean, there's some already there in site we could reuse, or I'm sure the town has a selection, I hope, somewhere hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple boulder retaining wall, one or two stacked high, steps running through it, maybe granite steps. Because right now there's no real differentiation of beach, driveway, or parking area, lawn. It's really loose and
Right.
erosion nightmare.
And what is all of this?
So Jeff kind of proposed some paths, and I was, I'm not sure if this is the right one. He had some paths, and it's kind of different alternative paths here, connecting the bridges to the parking area, to the beach.
Like crushed stone?
Yeah, I mean, he recommended, I probably would too, some sort of crushed stone. Probably not pea stone, it gets a little too small and probably get lost in the grass, maybe a little bigger, like, 3/4 inch. Probably tumbled, so it's not super angular and tough on the feet.
And people will be walking in bare feet there.
Yep. Or, you could go with asphalt too, that's more impermeable surface.
Handicap accessible.
And I could send that, around the boat
Is
boat storage area.
Is the bigger stone an issue with mowing when they mow the lawn at all? If that gets scattered at all?
There might be a little spring maintenance,
Yeah.
kind of just a power broom to put crushed stone back in the pathways, but, so there will be more maintenance than obviously an asphalt or paver or any other option. Much cheaper than gravel. That's what we're saying pretty much, yeah, a type of gravel.
Yeah.
Is there a cost differential amongst the three options?
What was that?
Significant cost differential amongst the three options?
Walkway options or the surface options?
Oh,
I mean, I think Jeff had different,
Yeah, he's got 3 options, and I don't know if he priced those. He must have priced those out with Audra.
yeah, I'm not sure. I
okay.
thought I saw a price sheet somewhere he'd put together for, maybe that's just the shirt tail ones, but.
That's fine.
Obviously, yeah, asphalt would cost, more, $4 or $5 a square foot at least, and crushed stone would be cheapest.
You gotta remember, it's really wet
So
in
the
there. Yeah.
major portion of this project, I think, would honestly be what you're talking about, is bring up the grade in here, kind of, positive drainage, keep the water moving, away or into the river here. Right now, it's kind of just pools almost right here, it seems
Yeah.
like.
Yep.
So bring a lot of fill, loam, and
Now,
probably some
you
sand.
can't add beach sand.
No.
What can you add? I mean,
I-
what are the regulations?
How close to the water we can be with any type of fill.
There's going to be some permitting anyways required for this, so
You gotta
part
go
of,
through DEP
Yeah.
permitting on that
Yeah.
stuff. You cannot
because this
do
is
it.
all within the shoreline zone and definitely within the 75-foot setback. I'm sure some of this, I didn't have the setback lines on here, but
Okay.
it would be bringing in loam, pretty much. Finished loam for, and, seed it,
Right.
hay it.
Doesn't
straw
that
rather.
section also sort of get a high tide when the water is pushed up? I've been there when the leaf detritus is like
Up here.
Well, the
These
water
are in-
level goes up and down.
The high water line is marked as here, but I'm sure it must
I don't
encroach.
know, I see
Brad?
leaves all the way up
Yes.
there.
So these are in idea.
Conceptual.
At this point, I mean, this is
Right,
just
exactly.
an open discussion. Okay, thank you.
And I'm in no way proposing these exact things. It's just rough ideas I put on paper. I didn't really,
Right.
just to scale, but pretty rough in areas. So
Now,
it's just
there
ideas.
are existing stones along here. Okay?
Yeah,
Existing trees I have marked
Well,
as well
trees, but
here.
the
Yeah.
existing
They're in there.
stones
Boulders.
too, Boulders.
Yep.
whatever
It's for
I'll
cars
call
to
them,
not
okay?
park further.
To prevent cars from going over. Wouldn't this barrier type of thing be more, shouldn't that be more in line with that instead of recessed down there? Or
It could be absolutely. That's what we're talking about. It's conceptual. It could be moved back. I wouldn't go much more forward really.
Not forward to the beach, no.
But back to in line with the boulders, that would make sense. Aesthetically, it looked nice, I'm sure, too. Yeah.
Did you say pervious is impractical here?
Well, there's certain calculation, like 20% of the lot or site can't be, more than, impermeable than that. So, I mean, I'm sure this is a big site. There's no problem there, I assume, but more just drainage-wise, it's better to have impermeable where possible. I wouldn't do the whole parking area impervious, but
If you did, well, the reason I'm asking is cost differential is huge. Just to cost it out, unless there's a technical reason why it absolutely can't work.
the paths, I think, crushed stone would be ideal.
And what I'm suggesting is Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. Give the spectrum of cost.
Sure,
That
absolutely.
helps to, I don't think it's practical not to pave it, but on the other hand, impervious is not great for the environment. And Pervious could probably work, because this area, Ray, is not plowed in the winter, right?
No.
Good, that helps, that helps.
Are you talking about
Plowed,
the
you
parking
said?
lot, Bob?
The parking lot doesn't get plowed.
Well,
It's been plowed recently. I
all right,
drove,
well, then you could, if it doesn't get plowed, you could use that, I don't know what it's called, but there's that landscape
Honeycomb stuff?
material.
yeah, the
that-
Grasscrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grasscrete
Grass,
stuff.
grass mat,
Yeah, well, it's a harder stuff. They use it in Portland around the trees and stuff.
well, they use it all over the country.
Yeah, they use it all
It's
over
very,
the
very
country. It's
popular.
very good stuff.
It's the precast grids
Yeah,
that you lay them
yeah,
down pretty quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a
no,
good
I didn't
option.
mean- I didn't even mean that.
Oh.
There's some actual material that compacts and can withstand vehicles and all of that stuff. And I forget what it's called. I can find out.
Well, I think that's a great option, John. I also, you tickle my, the parking lot, precast.
Precast problem is if you do perchance come along and put a plow on it, it's problematic for the plows.
Catches.
It's gonna
That's true.
crack that stuff up in a big hurry.
Yeah, you had 3 years.
People doing a lot just for the actual parking area and not for the main.
I can actually get that
Yeah.
answer for the material I'm thinking of. I've seen it. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, I
can
know
get
what you're
that
talking
from
about.
Steve Moore.
Yep.
I can speak to Steve.
Are we
Moore.
talking about the parking lot here?
It's good stuff.
Yes.
We were talking about parking lot and
All
also paths.
all currently shown impervious areas should be looked at for alternate materials.
Yes. Okay, I'll check on that material.
Because there's the differential in cost, especially today with asphalt and other things, into the impervious type materials, a better environmental.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question for you, with this being live streamed, can I get the copy, is it
Yes,
I can get a copy of it so I can take notes, I don't have to take notes now.
It's on YouTube.
you should, it should be on YouTube.
Fine. And then go back to it. Right. That'll be-
They should be recorded, otherwise I won't have to kill somebody.
That's good, all right. Okay.
I don't think that 3/4 inch minus is kids playing and running and.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be 3/4 inch minus, it would be a clean product, it would be a finished crushed stone. 3/4 inch minus for the base, and we would do a clean 3/4 for top. So
Or
it wouldn't get muddy at all.
There's all kind of stone dust, is all
I'm
kinds
talking
of.
about comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, same thing.
Walking on those stones.
Yeah.
Well, it would be a rounded stone, we'd get tumbled, so it would be angular. Angular does hold better, but not much grade here where it really is needed, so.
But even
The
that,
rounded.
even that, if it's that big, is really tough on feet.
Or sandstone. Stone dust.
Yeah, you can go, decomposed granite, stone dust, a smaller,
Yeah, that would be much better, right?
a little more puddling than the crushed stone would, but
Right.
Not with
So there's-
drainage.
some give and takes here. If they're installed properly, it would be a nice depth of
Yep.
3/4 inch minus below that, so it shouldn't be a big
Yes,
problem.
Exactly.
Right. Does this basically have the same amount of parking spaces that are currently there?
I'm not sure how much are currently there, I'm not sure it would be,
Yeah.
there are lines at all, but I have roughly on
Really
here.
old lines, I don't think you
Yeah.
can see them anymore.
It's about the same.
This was 26, again, this is a rough one that we could add, maybe
Okay.
2 or minus 2 here and there, but, and I think Jeff's had,
There are some days where you can't find a parking space there, and that's, just the way it is.
so he had 19 to 25 and 21 for intermediate.
Okay.
So,
Is this zoned? What zone is this in the town?
I'm not sure.
Because it has to do with setback of even stone dust. Because this doesn't exist.
But it all, I think, Jeff, doesn't it all go under shoreline ordinance?
Yes.
There's permitting for the
It does,
boulders as
but
well
the
needed.
shoreline zone ordinance varies based on the zone. There's a
The-
higher and lower setback.
The state setback is the one that drives it.
75
Right,
feet.
But for
75
instance, in the business district, it's only like 25 feet, but when you go into the village or beyond, it's 75 feet. And I'm looking at this, and just so you know, we're also working on legislation to change that for these situations in the Pathways Committee.
But you can't change the state regs for
We're
setbacks.
working on it at the state level.
From what to what?
To go, from
To-
what to
For a
what?
consideration of public walkways,
To make it larger or
make it
smaller?
closer, so that we can put stone dust paths closer to the
25.
water, closer than 75,
To the water?
Yeah.
for public pathways. I don't know if it'll go, but we're trying.
all right.
It's a long way
What do you think, John? No,
Don't hold
not
your
gonna
breath.
go?
I don't think it's a good idea.
Onward. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, you have
Total state.
a couple other options you wanted to show us there?
There's conceptual plans for the Barrett's Cove, and then I have just a similar type of conceptual just plan with different, or kind of again, similar to Jeff's plan, just kind of carrying off on a couple ideas.
This is for Shirt Tail?
This is for Shirt Tail Point. I was a big fan of his proposed idea to move the parking lot up farther.
That's our idea.
Wasn't my idea, I guess,
Actually, it sounds like Beth's idea.
wherever
No.
it originated.
It was this committee, we walked this park so many
And
times.
actually, I'll give him credit, that was Fitzy's idea.
Yeah, you're right, it was Fitzy's way back.
Is this option 2 we're talking about?
Option one.
We're in Shirt Tail Park right now.
On option one.
He has the little turnaround at the bottom, just for emergency vehicles, and then you move the parking lot up.
Yeah.
Less parking spots than before, but all the plans do, so I think that's, I assume okay, or seemed okay. I kind of branched off on that and almost made this turnaround more usable as there's a backup area for emergency vehicles, actual turnaround for drop-off as far as kids or chairs or, things like that.
So kayaks would drop off in the
Yep.
turnaround and then move up to the parking lot?
One issue with that is if we have room, I think it's 50-foot radius, I believe, for emergency vehicles. I'll have to see if we can swing that turn in here. Should be doable. I wouldn't make it too wide because that would, promote parking there.
Exactly.
So keep thin enough just for a drop off
That
and
is what's gonna
flow
happen,
back.
yeah.
Because that's
The white area is non-property?
Property goes beyond up
We
here
own
off the
quite
sheet.
a
I
ways.
think the property line is somewhere in here. The white is just existing woods through here.
Oh, okay.
Tapers off into open field, woods through here. I think a small grass buffer along the side. And just promote, maybe some paths through here, utilizing really the full property you have, either, just paths through the field,
So
or open areas of the field.
Jeff didn't do anything to minimize the erosion that's happening from Washington Street onto the drive? No?
I don't think his plans address that at all.
Okay. Because currently,
Neither do I.
it runs really bad there, and it becomes a drop-off from
This
the
is
asphalt.
almost impossible
Yeah.
to exit to the left.
Without spinning your tires.
Yeah.
At the very least, I think a swale on be the north side, I guess, of this. The culvert maybe below, some alternative route possible. Currently, I think the water comes almost across and then runs, probably follows it down, creates rills through it.
All natural materials?
What was that?
All natural materials on the roadways and parking lot?
Yep. And definitely need some retaining boulders. It is kind of a flat-ish area in here, but still slope carrying towards the
Right.
water.
Yep.
Boulders to retain that would be the easiest, cheapest way.
Yeah. Now, doing something like this, what are you looking at parking spaces there?
This only has 9 here.
Yeah.
I lost one, which we could easily add back, just a possible path through here. Again, if we already use this for cars and drop off, we want to divert the foot traffic through the field possibly, with a mode path. That would lose one for easy access to it. We could add one more in there, but it's hard to really get more besides taking some of the trees down of the woods there.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be one of the issues, is having enough parking there.
Take the trees down.
Yeah, we can cut a few trees in
I
there.
would cut a few trees.
Is part of the
I'd
reason
add
for,
at least 2 or 4 more.
part of the reason for less parking to control the number of people using the space at a
No.
time?
No.
Actually, I think we need more parking there.
Yeah. Well, the idea of getting rid of this as parking was because make this more of the park
Yeah.
Right.
and not have kids crossing where cars are.
That's gonna be an issue. too.
Because the current parking situation is really scary if there's kids in the lot and there's people
Right.
backing up and stuff.
Right.
Sure.
It's the same thing here, is that if you, and I don't know how you solve it, but it's the same thing, is if you have families coming out here and a kid runs out here and there's another car coming down here, you've
Yeah.
got an issue too.
Yeah.
So,
That's why this would promote traffic down here, vehicle-wise, which I'm not sure if we want. So again, if we have just the turnaround, it would keep cars out of that area more so. And we could utilize this as a footpath too.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously we can sign this, this is where you're parking. you know?
Yep. We can do a drop-off sign down here, parking here.
Yep.
Yep. And then also carrying off on, he proposed several options, I think
Yeah.
more on the other plans, close-up version, actually, this one right here. And alternatives for actually at the water's edge. A lot of erosion, pretty much just a bank that's constantly encroaching this way, it seems like. He proposed 2 boulder retaining wall ideas, one in the high water line, one behind the high water line, and one with a precast concrete retaining wall. That would also be cheapest. Aesthetically look, I think, the less attractive out of the 3. Boulders would be still a good look. Less attractive than the boulders. Yeah.
Boulders
Yeah.
would be much nicer.
And
That's where the kids play. That's the whole attraction, is that they can play right there.
Well, yes, but you see how much it erodes.
I know, but I
Those-
don't know, is it changing a lot?
Been looking at it for 20 years.
Yeah,
And
it hasn't changed
that much.
I don't know if it has.
I think the
That's
drop
why-
off
It is.
is
It is.
massive.
It is.
It's about that much or so. And
I would
last
almost
time
go
I was
3.
out there, and
Right.
that's,
Yes.
kids jump off of
On
the
the
bike.
priority list
There's
of,
nothing
It might be.
hazardous. There's nothing-
take the
Hold
whole
on, we
meeting
got
up.
conversations going on here.
Yeah.
Let
Where is
Mark
this?
finish.
Well,
Did
you-
you finish, Mark?
well, I just want to ask, where is this on the priority list? Are we?
It's high up.
This has
Sure
been
can.
on our agenda for a long time.
Right. Sure
So,
too.
so the select board is going to be interested in hearing about this and funding it.
Is that right?
Yes, they've already been hearing about it.
Yeah, actually, to summarize, John, because you were before Ray and the whole gang put together a great matrix of what needs to be done at every park, and not the least of which was these 2. So there is some funds set aside for doing some of this. Will it be enough? I couldn't tell you.
This
So
year.
it could be done anytime if the funds are available.
We're putting money in the capital plans for this work,
FY '20.
the conception of
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
want these parks to
Yeah.
become.
That's why I bring to, when it does come to select board, we need to be able to look at options that are considered, pros and cons of options, recommended option, and the cost of relative of
All
each.
options,
Right,
yeah.
because you're going to do a cost benefit kind of a thing.
All right, thank you.
I think back to your point, yeah, this would be easier to play off of and sit on and jump off of, whereas these might look nicer and
Yeah.
tie into the look. So you raise a good point, I believe. I think there should be some retaining wall there, even though it's not moving. I think to actually retain it and prevent people slipping off and twisting
Is there a
ankles.
way to blend it somehow?
Yeah, we probably don't have to do the whole
Taper it.
thing.
Yeah, he only proposed a little bit, which is where it's
Yeah.
majorly is, the major impact is.
Yeah. I'm just imagining, because what I see are parents sitting on the grass, watching their kids go in and out of the water, in and out, in and out, in
Yeah,
and
they
out,
can
all
still do
along,
that.
all along the shore. But if they're boulders that are like this big, blocking it,
Climb right over them.
well, they might climb over it, but it's like, don't climb there, you'll fall and you'll hit your head or something. No, do you don't think?
I don't think so.
Are the boulders like
The
recessed? or-
Lakefront that I've had for years, the boulders are constantly moving with the lake tide and ice, and the kids climb over them, the kids move them, the parents move them, it's constantly changing. And yet the shore itself isn't changing that much. So,
On this one, you said this is where the existing earth is, so it would be behind it?
He was just showing to encroach in the high water line would be more, I think, permitting. That's why he said the
Oh,
permitting cost
gotcha.
for option 2 would be
Oh,
more.
yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure the exact benefit that would bring. I mean, I think this actually give you more beach area and just where it is existing anyways, so. Yeah, the rough plans, I can leave to you guys to go over more and show whoever would love to talk about them at any other point.
I'm a little troubled with the idea of having a pathway going down through a turnaround and everything like that with traffic, you know.
Well,
I'd
Asa,
much
what do
rather
you
we
think
could
it- yeah,
direct
could
that.
Direct
you?
it around.
Could you have
Going
it?
around, okay?
Absolutely,
That's
yeah.
Because
what-
this is where we put our porta potties too.
Yeah.
But those could be relocated anywhere.
Yeah, I assume so, yeah.
and the people are going a straight line.
And that people will go in a straight line.
That's what I was gonna say.
They'll go right down the
Kansas is-
roadway,
yeah.
go right down
Right.
the middle.
Carrying their
And
stuff.
The parking lot, as you go down there now, the times that I have been in there, I've never been in there when there's been more than 3 or 4 cars. Now,
I've seen it when it's been
and
busy.
most people, I'm certain there are times when there are a lot more, especially
Summer.
summertime.
Summer, yeah.
But I've gone down in there, and people drive right straight as far as they can and park as close to the water, and sit there and eat their lunch.
That too.
Or make out.
Oh, that's
or,
great.
You know, get out their fishing gear, and they're gonna go right down in. And if it's a traffic circle down there, it doesn't matter. If
There's a button on it.
Nobody there, they just go right down there and stop right there anyways.
Asa, I don't know if you know this or if this is something I can look into, if there's any way this could divert this way and we had opened this up for a park.
I'm sure we could, yeah. Your property line, I'm not positive on this
Property line
side.
is pretty close. I was wondering.
Oh, which, it shows it, oh, we've got quite a bit, but it drops off.
Yeah, the grade really dips that way. You could probably encroach a little bit, but it would require more retaining of maybe some boulders or tapering the
Just a
soil.
thought, coming down that driveway ended about the top of your circle, okay, and right about there. But along that side of it, have angle parking in. Pull in, angle park in, angle park in, angle park in.
Oh.
More parking is,
Yeah, just all
But
the
like
what,
yeah.
what we fear is that emergency vehicle having to back somewhere or turn
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Eh,
Yeah,
yeah, so.
yeah.
This is great, this is a first step
Just
for
good.
us.
This is a good start.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
yeah,
I think
Sorry to take up a lot of time for John there.
yeah, I think so.
they're,
Awesome.
Good.
Well, thank you, Asa.
Absolutely, yeah. I can leave you, this is originals. I can leave them with you. I'm sure I can get them back whenever needed.
Okay,
so.
yeah, sure, I'll keep them on me.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff's taking a picture.
Have to ask,
That's
because
just for
the
me.
selectmen are asked, are you doing this as a volunteer for us? Are you billing us $100 an hour? Or, you know, just, you know,
All to this point has been volunteer, 'cause I grew up here and love the town and want to work with you guys. No, absolutely.
as a concerned citizen, you know, you live in the area. Thank you.
Yeah, but in the future, if any point, like my services, I'm happy to propose any sort of services as far as what your take on my part. And
They've already contributed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
no, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just let me stop in. Sorry for
All
the.
right.
I'll leave these are bigger ones, Jeff. Do you want these
Oh,
to look
yeah,
at?
I'll
Or?
take those.
Okay.
I'll leave them with your plans here. Awesome.
Tape them to the wall, see what happens.
Okay.
Tape them onto the wall?
Yeah. see if
Graffiti,
anybody
somebody
knows.
graffiti them up?
No tape, no tape.
So Budget Committee sees them tomorrow night. Thank you. Submit.
Might fund it,
Yeah, right.
or fund me.
Put dollar signs.
Go
on it.
fund me.
Yeah, go
I'm
fund me.
going to move quickly to something quickly so Beth can get out of here, okay?
Yeah, okay.
All right, on the snowball operations, I
Yes.
know you made a report to the select board last night, but you.
Jody did, but yes,
Jody,
yep.
Okay, fine. As far as where you stand on the budget this year, the snowball?
So I passed around the budget report. This was as of yesterday. Our revenues are really close to being what we proposed, like within 9,500. Our expenses are doing well at this time. Yep, I think I do. Yep, I'm here. I have a few more.
Yeah, there was a report in last night's package on the select board, if you noticed it or not. It was the last item on the agenda, but Jody put a curve in that she's been monitoring every week. Beth, you have that one? I mean, I can tell you what
I-
it said, if you want. It's up to you.
Go for it.
Well, it couldn't be better. Basically, what it suggests is that the revenue is ahead of expenses net by over $100,000.
Yep.
Net. And I say roughly because, there's always think about what CMP bills we've gotten and which ones we don't. We're not, 100% accrual.
As of the 12th, as of yesterday.
Correct.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Based on statistical from previous years, how much are we going to spend of that 100,000? Are we going to end up with a $20,000 positive at the end? Or are we going to have a $20,000 negative at the end?
So-
Based on,
We have our expenses all the way until June 30th, so all of the utilities,
right,
What a-
what are the estimates of what those have been on, we must know that generally we pay so much out. What is your budgeted amount for that expenses?
Well, if you look at the graphs, Mark, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's looking.
You gotta be
I mean,
careful comparing year to year.
But that's
Years
not an
compare
answerable
too much.
question right this minute, but looking at the graph right now, it's looking very close. I mean, it's looking good, or even better. It's looking.
Very, very good. Way ahead of previous
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
And-
yeah, we're way ahead of the last couple of years.
To the question, this is really Audra and Beth's decision, but to the extent they can, they just need to manage that
Right.
100,000 to stay positive as possible. It's not going to stay at $100,000. I don't expect it to. Will be half, maybe. But being where we are, that's why the select board last night, not a motion, not a direction, we do not direct Snowball in operations, suggested that we feel that we want to give our support to Audra and Beth, that they have the reins to run it as they see fit, and not to be too concerned about losing dollars for open days. And so basically, fault towards open rather than closed. The decision day to day is theirs. And I think they're going to work really hard.
and there are still some receivable out there. We have some monies coming from the ski club. We also have lodging folks, we bill them monthly and they pay us back for the tickets that they hand out to their guests.
Yeah, Peter, good.
Well, I'd like to follow up on Mr. Falciani's comment, and I watched that 3-hour live stream this morning. And I think a lot of the citizens, and a couple of them are on our select board, need to realize that it's not as easy, and Beth and Audra know this, that you don't keep a ski area open just because it's sunny out and nice out, understanding that not many paying tickets, not many paying visitors show up on a Wednesday. I'm sorry, they just don't at the end of the season. And I'm sorry that we really run by paying tickets, and just because you open the mountain up for season ticket holders, it might make you feel good, but it does just add to a tremendous expense. And I just got to bring that up, because the community, God love them, think you just open the thing up because it feels good. And it's, so I trust Beth and Audra's
That's where the charge lies.
jurisdiction, because they've seen the numbers so many times, and it's not.
That's why,
Anyway,
that's
thank
why,
you.
that's why Peter said this is not in the purview of the select board. We dictate policy, we don't dictate operations, and Audra and Beth have already discussed it, and they're working as
Yeah.
best they can to use their own set of dice.
We're being flexible.
Yeah.
Going forward, is there a plan, though, that you have, or is it just day-to-day on what's going from now on to the end of the season?
Typically, week to week, we look at what the weather is, we watch for brown spots, we watch for what, how the snow conditions are. Yes, Sunday, we were boundary to boundary, so today and tomorrow is extra. So we're going to open up today 2 to 6, tomorrow noon to 6, Friday looks like a rain.
Yep.
So we may be closing, but at least we can get them in today and tomorrow. And Saturday and Sunday, we've got lots lined up. So it should be a good weekend. And then the following week, we'll see if it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And we recognize, too, that there's a challenge of prognosticating next week, and always be encouraged to do the extent possible to get, whenever the decision is made, to get it out there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Good. Pathways, Jeff.
As it relates to this group, I think I did allude to, and John heard it, that we are proposing legislation that relates to the setback for public ways in different town zones, public ways close to the water. And I think there's a public hearing at the end of March at the Capitol. It's a long way from going anywhere, but the issue is to try to, we're looking at the long-range plans specifically for the Riverwalk. And the Riverwalk has been fortunate in that the sections that have been built have been in the right town zones.
Sorry.
That permitted the closer setback. But all the remaining town zones require 75 feet of
Right,
setback.
right.
Which means that the Riverwalk will be in people's houses if it goes anywhere,
Right to the living room.
right to the living room. So that's the issue.
How is the existing Riverwalk managed to be where it is?
Because it's in the right zones where the state permits the closer construction. It's the state, John's right, is that the state's shoreland zone, town shoreland zone ordinances, and it changes from zone to zone within the towns. You got village district, business district, transition district, all those different things, and they map it across for what that means. And what the legislation says is there a way to consider for situations like the Riverwalk, how do you do that? How do you allow someone to put infrastructure closer to the water for the public to access shoreland zone, or be along the shoreland zone to access it when it's in somebody's backyard, when people are mowing and doing all this other stuff, but we can't have a public path. So it does have ramifications for the whole state when you do that, and it has to be carefully thought through. But I'm just letting you know that that's going on, and it may relate to some of the work you're doing here. And the message is, be cognizant of the fact when you're doing all this planning. So that's what I was asking, what zone is it in? But those two things. So that's that. The work, you may have noticed, it's been a while since I've been here, has stopped on the Riverwalk section that's by the old skateboard park because weather. I don't think we'll be able to do any more work until late fall because of nesting blue herons. not that there are any there, but there are the possibility that they're there. And so we don't know what we're going to do with that.
We have an extension though, right?
For this year, it's the end of this year.
Okay.
That's correct. And the intent is, I don't know, I'm going to ask. We'll see. I don't understand how the middle school is building there.
And we can't finish, right?
Yeah, so that's a question is on my plate right now, to write to Fish and Game and Wade's Fish and Wildlife to ask them about that. So it could probably has to do with setback, I would suspect.
Does.
Is that what it is?
They're farther away from the river
Further
than,
from the river, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But the
Well, they're
birds nest
they're-
1 to 2 miles inland from the river, so.
They're pretty close to the river.
The birds
very
can't
close
read
to
the
the-
regulations.
Yeah. So we'll see about that. What else is going on? The only other part that's the business you do here is the town is going to go out to bid probably at the end of this year for the shirt tail sidewalk.
Washington Street, will that extend, where will that actually run? What's the,
It goes from Matthew John, where the sidewalk ends. It'll
So it's a
cross-
continuation.
There'll be a crosswalk there to the riverside and go all the way to Shirt Tail.
okay, that's been pending for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
that actually facilitated our ideas of what to do with Shirt Tail, because the idea that with the walkway there, you're gonna have probably even some more foot traffic going up
Yeah, and
there.
there's no accommodation for that in these plans. It's just a road. So,
Yeah.
What do you mean, bike racks and stuff?
no, there's no way for a person to walk down except on
Oh,
the
a
road.
sidewalk, yeah,
Doesn't
gotcha.
have to be a sidewalk. And I would suspect they'll do what they do now, which is walk on the grass.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they'll walk down the middle of the road.
Or they'll walk down the middle of the road. Yeah.
Be realistic, people.
Yeah, yeah. So, something to consider. I think best case, and this is really hard, is that it would be built in 2020.
Yeah, most likely,
Yeah.
most likely,
Out to bid in 2019. And,
yeah.
yeah, and that, the reason I mention it is that it's combined with the Maritime sidewalk project. I call it the Maritime. It's the Route 1 project, hooking the bus stop into the sidewalk system, in hopes that it would, that mobilizing those two projects together will reduce the price of both of them. So the same contractors working on both.
Have all the right-of-ways been dealt with and stuff?
Almost. That's why we're looking at 2020. Yeah, almost.
Okay.
And the other big picture is that there's a lot of energy in the committee to do PR for bike awareness in the town, and how to do that, how to create greater awareness that there's people on bicycles, on our roads, to be aware of that. And we're not sure what that looks like yet, but something. So we're going to work on that and come up with a plan, and we'll share it with you guys, and you can think about it too. Plan meaning like a master plan, say.
Have you had any discussions with the state about some of their roads in town vis-a-vis potential bike paths being, or shoulders being widened? For example, Hosmer Pond Road is a
Right.
total disaster if you're a bicycle rider.
Oh, yeah.
And even if you're a walker, I mean, it's a total
Very
disaster. And I'm just wondering whether by, either eminent domain or something, that a shoulder can be created on the inland side along there.
It's the same issue.
Notice that's not your side, John.
What?
State roads, MDOT, as you know, on Route 1, they will attack those things when the road is going to be undergoing some repair. They won't typically attack it for the function for. a
Yeah, but
bike
that
path.
road, Bob, has been a total disaster for functionally, as far as the drainage issues on the inland
Clearly
side.
understood. That's why they,
They won't, I've talked to them about it, and they don't seem to step up to the
It's not on their
plate.
radar. Look at their plans for the next 3 years, it's not on their radar.
But what Jeff is saying, and we've got a great opportunity here this coming spring and summer and fall, is that we do have a bike main event in July, the lobster ride, and then we have the bike main event itself, a week-long event, which will be kind of dovetailing between Rockland and Camden. And so there's two great events where we're not talking about changing a sidewalk or changing a right-of-way. We're talking about bicycle awareness.
Right.
And this is a group that is very good at coming into a community and saying, let's dovetail with these bed and breakfasts and these hotels that rent bike. These people all have
This is
bikes.
summer rent.
We already have too much bike traffic. We just need more bike awareness. No, but I mean, we need more bike awareness.
So you just
It's
said-
going
so you
out
just
We
said-
already know that people love bikes.
Great,
Bikes are never gonna go away.
good luck.
And that's a good thing. But we just don't have very good bike awareness.
And John's right, is that they're local roads and state roads, and each of them have their own
Own
issues.
challenges, yeah. And
State-
actually, Ray, I have property on,
My-
I
my
have property on
comment-
both sides of the road.
My comment is, well, yes, we need more bicycle awareness, and we need more bicycle participation in paying for it. Bicycles should be registered with the state so that they have to pay something for their registration, for their participation, for their recreation.
Most of the bicyclists, I suspect, are also licensed to sell.
Yeah, that's fine.
And they-
Not on the bikes, they're not. They're freeloaders, in my opinion. I'm a vocal minority, I apologize.
No, that's an idea. There are other states that do that.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
They charge like $25.
Yep, that would, something like that would be a good thing.
I apologize. I've got things I've got to go take care of.
Thank you,
Look
Bob.
out there.
Thank
You
you.
know, if there's anything,
Okay, fine,
if you guys want to meet again sooner than later or whatever.
okay.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Good.
Great to meet you all.
Okay, fine.
Thanks,
Hey,
Lisa.
nice meeting you. Thank you for your work.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Beth, we'll be back, we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all set on the snowball stuff, Aaron.
What happened
The summer rec program, Beth gave me these. Yeah, there's some copies here. Let me keep one, pass them around. Here.
We got,
Yeah, I don't know how many copies are here, so.
Are you gonna go through all of these A through L, right?
Get through as many as we can,
Okay.
all right? And that's all I have, that's that copy there, okay? But as we discussed, and here's a second copy there, too, here. As we discussed at the last meeting, we're going to the summer camps that the Park and Rec Department runs with, in conjunction with the Y, or uses the Y for that. And have put together, and these are release and waiver forms.
green means it's on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Point it
Release-
at you and put it to
Yeah.
green, Jeff.
But it's going to a tiered pricing system where parents will, as I understand it, check off which tier they feel that they economically fit into. And this has been used in many other different programs elsewhere, so. This is really just there for everybody's information. This is all set and going out.
It's all set and going.
It's all set and going,
So-
yes, yeah. Yeah. And the next thing is on the field reservation fees, and I don't have anything more from Beth on that.
They're supposedly working on it.
Right. Okay. Tannery Park.
Yes.
Why don't you fill us in as what's going on
Okay,
there?
well, first of all, knowing we had a meeting today, I contacted Jeremy yesterday to find out what was going on from his perspective, Jeremy being the planning development, Jeremy Martin. And he wrote me a note back. Since then, there was actually a select board meeting last night where the tannery was on the agenda. Unfortunately, the agenda hadn't been sent out till yesterday. So a lot of people that wanted to attend that meeting and respond weren't able to. Anyway, I'll first read Jeremy's note so to bring everybody up to date. Steve Dyer will be doing a brief presentation to the select board this evening, meaning yesterday, about the brownfield cleanup and where we are and where things will go from here. Ransom's the consulting firm, will be finalizing the community relations plan, which is presently being reviewed by the EPA. In addition, they are in the process of finalizing the APCA plan as well. After much discussion with the consultant and EPA, there has been a change of plans as far as the cleanup goes, so that we can release the RFP. Hopefully, we get some good responses to the RFP in order to better facilitate redevelopment of the property. Once we pick a development proposal, we will then take the proposal to voters, and then the developer will work with Ransom to finalize a design and remediation plan that would leverage EPA brownfield funds as part of their design and proposed use of the site. I will also be revising the brownfields work plan to facilitate this change. The town needs to better position itself for redevelopment of this property. And again, the best way to do that is for a developer to take advantage of and leverage EPA cleanup funds as part of the proposed redevelopments. Since the RFP is not yet ready to be released, and since we have to get town support for what happens there, it is best to work through all of this before we commence cleanup of the site. The select board will be hearing this evening as part of a presentation by Ransom Consulting. We firmly believe that taking advantage of the cleanup funds is the best, most efficient, and cost-effective way to get the site redeveloped. And we're looking out for the best interest of the town and the taxpayers. That's Jeremy's. So anyway, he did this presentation last night. There were some comments. The main point of the meeting last night was discussing the remediation. But in doing that, Jeremy also spoke and brought up the RFP. And I personally was concerned because I had a few more questions about the RFP. And Bob, who's present here, limited the discussion on that, which I was disappointed in, because this is all supposed to be an open town process, and it was on the agenda. And the main concern still is that the tannery work group plan be respected. And the worry is from people, some people on the tannery work group, is that this redevelopment idea is taking the place of the tannery work group plan. In other words, that the whole property might be for sale, whereas the tannery work group plan was very specific and brought a quarter of the property possibly for commercial development. Right. Where now the gist seems to be, let's sell it, maybe we can get a developer to do all the things we want, but if we can sell it, let's sell it, because financially that would be better. So that's a concern of a lot of us. And in terms of this committee, I was hoping that we would see that property also as a possibility for some more recreation possibilities. And we haven't really seriously discussed that here as any kind of a possibility. And now's the time to do that, because once the RFP is drawn up, the opportunity's been gone. John?
Tom, I was part of all that work group, and I understand that. However, just to play devil's advocate, I think that, some would argue that we have enough open recreational space around town, that we have, plenty of parks, percentage-wise, we have plenty of recreation space, and that actually the location of this property is, in a way, an extension of downtown to where the McGonagall store is, and that actually by strengthening it through redevelopment with whatever facility, whatever RFP for redevelopment comes out, whether it ends up being retail, office, a combination of that, a combination of maybe some residential, who knows, mixed use or whatever it is, would actually strengthen that spine of town coming out that way and support and enhance the several businesses that are out in that area trying to stay afloat. I think that can also be done in concert, for example, with having the farmer's market there. I don't see that as a limit. I mean, a farmer's market, if you go to cities all over the country, farmer's market is right in the middle of the mix of everything. And I mean, I've seen it in Portland, Oregon. I've seen it in towns across the United States not very long ago on road trips. So I don't think that it's mutually exclusive to have the city or the town here put forth to a developer or put it out there to actually come up with a plan or ask for an RFP to redevelop this property. I really think it would be not just tax base wise, but I think physically it would be an enhancement. And I do have to question, I have to say, I've come around to understanding when I look at the recreation areas, not to be redundant, but once again, we have a lot of parks. Jeff's going to continue working on trying to connect them through the Pathways Committee and stuff like that. And it isn't that the pathway can't go through there and along the water there or anything like that. It's done over in Augusta, it's done in Hallowell, it's done all over the state in Brunswick, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my thought. I mean, I don't think you have to be so fearful.
Yeah, and I think, look at the situation, is we have a lot of open space, okay?
Right.
In the town, whether it's state-owned or town-owned.
Right.
But as far as recreational facilities of things to do, there is not a single playground for young kids in the town. There is not a single outdoor basketball court in the town. There are 2 tennis courts in need of unbelievable repair to be used.
Well, they should be
Okay?
fixed.
Huh? Well, it's $100,000 to fix
I know.
them, all right? And you can't put them, yeah, there's all those things. So, I mean, we always talk about all the open space that we have in this town, but it's not, it's for people who want to walk in the woods and stuff, all right? There's a lot of stuff, you go to other towns and the recreational facilities that you have. We do have a ski resort, which other towns don't have. But as far as playgrounds, little parks for kids, we don't have them.
And I just want to add again that the Tannery Work Group was formed of 14 people from around the town, not just the neighborhood. There was only a few people from the neighborhood. Spent 2 years. We actually came to a consensus amongst us, which was very unusual to do. And the Tannery Work Group report, which was multi-use, did have a commercial part of that, which, everybody agrees that'd be fine, but there's no reason. The other uses that were given was farmer's market with open space, with park space, with a playground. And I have never lived in a town that didn't have some sort of park with a playground. And this town does not have any kind of a park with any good playground. Plus, where this is situated is right in the middle of the proposed Riverwalk. It's right in the middle. So it'd be the meeting place.
I'm not suggesting you can't have a playground in the mix.
Yeah.
Well, to turn it all-
But what I'm hearing from you, Tom, is that you're basically, if I understand you, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, if I understand you, essentially want to minimize the physical built environment there.
We want to do it like the Tannery Work Group. It was a concept, but the concept was approximately a quarter to maybe up to a third possibly of the site, not to turn the whole site over to a developer.
No, I agree, and I think per Ray's comment that we can still have a playground there in that area where we talked about, but I don't think the whole site has to be a playground.
No, nobody's saying that. I don't know if you left the committee before it was over, but if you look at the Tannery Work Group report, that's what we're trying to go by, and it does include commercial space.
Okay.
I have just an informational question.
Okay.
What year did the town take over the property?
1997?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right, Ray.
Okay.
About 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
30 years, and there was about
No, it's
I'm
not
going to
quite
guess a
that.
5-7 year
22.
period in there where they couldn't do anything because of legal aspects and
The remediation,
the
first
remediation that had to take place first.
Right.
Right.
That's,
And that's still in the process.
That's what we were discussing last night, was
yeah,
what the
that's
status
still
of
in the
that was.
process.
Yes.
That was a function
And
last
from
night.
what I understand from last night, what Jeremy and the ransom people were trying to explain was that the way they seal everything in is partially dependent on what's going on top of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
All that's necessary is 10 to 12 inches of dirt with a layer in between. That's all that's necessary.
I think, I wouldn't bet on just that.
No, I think
Because it was
something more
depending
than
on if it's going to be a parking lot, if it's going to be a building, if it's going to be a playground for kids.
Correct.
It's slightly different.
It's slightly
It
different.
can be different, yeah.
So I'm,
Yeah, it is slightly different.
That's correct.
so,
You're right.
Yeah,
what was that?
Just clarifying, was that a statement?
Well, that was kind of a statement. I wanted to know when it started, and then, we still aren't to the point where
yeah.
we can just walk and do whatever we want.
Of course not.
So-
It's a brownfield.
Yeah.
It's a
It will
brownfield.
always be a brownfield.
And that's the other interesting thing.
Federal list, it'll always be listed on a federal list.
That's right.
As brownfield.
This is partially a question maybe for John, but, they're proceeding with trying to do an RFP, but as far as I've seen, nobody's come up with a drawing showing the actual buildable areas based on all the setbacks there.
I'm not sure I agree with that. They've shown some pretty determined areas that are sensitive to the federal government's,
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of lines, but I mean, what is actually left? That's the question. Because if you're going to put an RFP out there, you want to, what's the point of wasting the time if, you got a
I think that's
5,000 feet buildable?
I think Peter's right, though. I think that was done.
Yeah.
Well, I've got as many,
There's setbacks, there are lines from the Riverwalk, there's lines from the VRAP area.
there's a floodplain there.
There's the floodplain, but all those lines have been put on a map, resulting in the percentage of area that is potentially buildable.
It would just be nice for somebody to encircle the area that is buildable.
From my recollection of the Tannery Work Group meetings and everything, when we looked at the map site, and there is a limited area that is really buildable on there.
That's correct.
And the other part is that because of the river, there is a limited area where you could even put parking spaces.
That's correct.
They have to be like
Very good,
50 or
right. Very
75, they have to be
That's
50 or
correct.
75 feet away from the river, which isn't that much. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the town can put an RFP. I don't know if you're ever gonna find a developer come in, this is my personal opinion, a developer to come in to do it. And once a developer does come in with a proposal, the town is gonna have to vote on it, and as has happened twice before, it's gonna get shot down.
You're absolutely,
It's gonna get shot.
you're bringing up a very, very good point.
But I think that the town has decided to go with this process, and they're gonna try to do it that way. My question is, the funds for the remediation, is there a timeline on that?
End of 21.
End of '21?
You have plenty of time.
Yeah, because I personally don't, knowing what's happened before, I personally don't think you're gonna have someone jumping at that piece of property to build there.
Ask me in 3 months.
Right, and if they don't coordinate with, go ahead.
There's a 3-month limit on this?
Oh, no, no,
No,
no. I
okay.
said, at some point in time, if an RFP goes out, when it goes out, by the time we responded to it, we may get 0
Right.
to 50 responses, not logically the 50,
Right.
but
Right.
that's why you're joking, said 3 months, 4 months, I don't know.
Okay.
But it would make sense for the RFP to coordinate with people who are very concerned, so it doesn't turn into a battle after the fact. Let's work together in putting this RFP together, so we can hopefully take that consensus we had and go forward. And we have a plan for that.
Last night at the Selectmen's meeting, one of the questions that I heard was, is any of that zoned for residential? Could there be residential?
That's a good
in there?
question. I agree.
Yes.
Guidelines, I
believe
think, say no.
There are issues with zoning,
But that can be,
not that they couldn't be
not that they
surmounted.
can't be changed.
Right, right. So there are issues with zoning, as it's currently zoned. Yes.
But Ray, and I'm gonna have to excuse myself, but I mean, I
It's
think.
business river zone.
I think it's really important, and God love the Riverwalk, committee, the group that you've put
Henry Wood
together
Group.
over all these years. But I think at this point, it's better for the town or for this group or for all of these groups to kind of come up with smaller is better. All of this stuff, we need to not come up with the idea of residential or the idea of business. This is ridiculous. If you could come up with the most simple, small project that impacts as little as possible of moving of dirt, you would probably satisfy more local residents.
That's what the Tannery Work Group
Well,
is.
and I would make it smaller. I would take whatever you had in your proposal and I would minimize it. Because, I would minimize it again.
Okay?
Because, in essence, that's probably the cheapest and less divisive thing that we could come up with. For God's sake, we
Right.
don't need to develop stuff anymore. We've got more crap to work on in this town that's already developed.
The plan, the Tannery Work Group plan said any improvement, non-commercial improvement there was going to be fundraised and done incrementally after the funds were raised. So there is no push to do some expensive playground that isn't fundraised.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
Onward, yeah, okay. The other things on this list, I really don't have anything new to say about anything. The Lake Beach improvements, I mean, Beth would be on top of that. Bike rack installation, I don't think anything's gone further on that.
She had the list and she had the prices.
Yeah, okay. The other items here are, unless anybody wants to talk about something, I think we're pretty well set.
Just to, Ray, if I might reinforce what I said to you in an email, just to understand it about, what I sent you an email about one of the issues we were talking about, which is in your meeting notes, and John, talked to John a little bit about it, this is about the toboggan, toboggan concerns.
Would you fill us all in on?
Yeah, sure.
On where your,
Yeah,
where
sure.
your understanding is?
Just briefly, we're trying to, kind of rein in a few things, not with this committee, but with maybe some others, in terms of going a little off tangent. We had to bring
This
it back.
committee goes off tangent, that's
No,
okay.
no. This committee does a good job. But it brought to mind a couple of great comments that were made on the side about drinking at tobacco.
Right.
I understand that. I encourage individuals who have that concern to get that information to Audra. It's an operational decision that has to go there because of concern, any concern. It could be your sidewalk, whatever the hell. Not through this environment yet. Because then Audra can decide whether well, she may say, she won't, but she may say, no big deal. No, she's not going to do that. She's going to probably say, she could, but then it could become a policy issue, which would come up to the select board. And if I'm on the select board, I'm saying, I'm going to have Parks and Rec look at this. That's the process. I was just trying to clarify. We're trying not to overload the committees with stuff that, remember, they serve the behest of the select board. They're supposedly, in theory, supposed to be coming up with recommendations on things we can get information on. You know, how to improve our parks. That's classic that we talked about earlier. It's a great job this committee's done about that. It allowed me, to increase the budget for reinforcement. And I can say there's 21 damn parks here. They all need work. And we have $8,000 in the damn. Are you crazy? It should be $25,000, $30,000. That's not the only example, but I was just trying to reinforce that, Ray. So I was trying to do. And those who are meeting those, because, obviously, too, we can't let every committee go grab Randy Gagne and come to a meeting to do this and do that, because Audra manages his time. You can request that. Right.
Yeah,
That's all.
Got it.
And just per our conversation we had, I just want to clarify the reason that I responded to Sarah's comment in the way that I did was because it was sort of, if you will, unsaid, but I don't necessarily take for granted or believe that Snowball Management understood, and no reason why many people understand the state law on this in municipal public places. I mean, you can get technically, a police officer can pick you up right out here if you're drinking a beer walking down the street. That's true. And at the Snowball, with all that happening out there that was happening, apparently escalated this year, which led to Sarah's comments.
Sure.
And management didn't undertake to do anything about it out there, and that may be because from their perspective it was a good thing to have happen, but it isn't a matter of a good thing or a bad thing. It's state law not to allow that to be undertaken. So that was my point in bringing that up.
No, that's very well put.
I'm just, what you were mentioning, though, as far as discussions in our committee, when things are brought up, they're going to go on to the minutes. What do you want me to do?
Oh, no, don't ever change the minute. Oh, no, your minutes are fine. No, I'm just commenting on the minute. Don't change them. It mentioned, I'm just reinforcing that it mentions, well, we'll get Randy Gagne to the next meeting. Sorry. That was said. Don't change it. And by the way, it's video now, so it's on record. No, not that. It's just that, in some committees, we've had an issue where individuals' hot buttons became committee things, and we don't want to waste your time on things that the worst thing that can happen. I've heard this from 3 or 4 chairs of committees. They go work on something, they bring it to the select board says no, and they get said, what the hell are we wasting? When some of those things they worked on were not asked to be worked on. So you got a catch-22 going on. I'm trying to have all of our committees avoid that. Because your time, you're doing this for free. This is something you're doing to time, and we have unbelievable resources on committees. We need to maximize them. That's all.
Motion to adjourn?
Accepted.
Good meeting.
All in favor?
Turn off our mics.
All right. How do you turn these? Oh, okay.